Okay. I'm gonna move that to the trash. Delete. Mm. So, hey,
What's
Sir
up,
Hill.
Sir Hale?
Hey, what's good?
Of
Jeffrey
course,
says it all.
look, I'm having
You,
some technical difficulties, so I'm not for sure if I'm live just yet because I
yeah, you,
just had to create
What?
another
yeah, you
link.
definitely live.
I'm definitely live on YouTube.
hmm
Oh, happy
I don't
Wednesday, everybody!
see it.
What's up, beautifully animated? What's going on with you?
What's up? What's up?
We just had the doctor drop off, but we're gonna get this show on a roll. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second. Okay. So we're good to go, y'all. I'm so sorry, y'all. I am not that tech savvy. And when I say I be trying, I really be trying. I really be trying. See. So today is part two of the episode that we did last Wednesday where we was talking about trauma and healing and what does
Mhm.
healing look like for everybody. So today on the show we got Zen Frankie. We have Daru on the show. We have Sir Hale, beautifully animated. We also had Dr. Nakumbe, who fell off, but I'm quite sure he's going to be coming back really soon.
Mhm.
Um, so last week when we was talking about trauma, of course, everyone was telling their different stories, and we was expressing how. Um, sorry, I'm trying to add him back up here. I don't know what I'm doing. But look, that's the beauty. That's the beauty in everything, right? This is traumatizing to me. This is me experiencing trauma, and I am working through that.
Yeah, you just like
Amen.
below our screen, the StreamYard stream uh screen, whatever. Sorry. When you see us, you put your mouse over his net picture or whatever. It should say add to stream.
It's not allowing me. All right, there he goes. Yeah. So last week we were talking about different forms of
Oh,
trauma and how.
oh okay.
There you go. I'm sorry, Doc. I'm trying my best.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
did I? I think I took them off again. I think I clicked them on and clicked them off. All right, there you go.
No, he's here. Hmm.
All right. Last week we was talking about different forms of trauma and how trauma looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
We talked about sexual trauma. We talked about the emotional trauma of police brutality. We talked about workplace trauma, and I think what made us want to come back this week is because we was talking about the spirit of anger and rage. Um, I'm gonna let
Hmm.
Frankie, yeah, I'm gonna let Frankie get into that because he's a spiritual person on the panel right now. So, Frankie, if you
um,
don't mind introducing yourself, letting the people know what it is that you do, and talk about the spirit of rage.
okay, got you. Greetings, world. My name is Frankie. I am a meditation teacher, a vegan chef, an herbalist, mycologist, sound healer, and I help people heal themselves because we don't heal people. The body does it on its own. So I value letting people know that they have the power to heal themselves. I'm just a vessel. I just tap into certain frequencies and get information that helps support you, but you do it on your own. The spirit of anger and rage, um, it's the actual spirit. The church has specific prayers based on the emotional characteristics of whatever that emotion is. So if it's anger, these things underneath anger is how you identify with anger. And so they got it down to a T in terms of naming these spirits. So the spirit of anger often it acts itself out basically the same in every human. It's not different. It's just levels of it. You know, we have extreme anger and rage, and then we have the lower levels where it's annoyance. But we don't consider that, you know, a form of anger or rage. But I think it's subtle. It leads toward more of the extreme versions. Like the more we are people, places, spaces, that energy kind of builds, and the spirit always around us. And the more we lower our frequency, the more susceptible we'll ourselves be. The higher our frequency, basically, the more untouchable we are. That's just the power of love. And being light and being clear and knowing who you are and how you are and knowing that there will always be something around you to distort you and throw you off your path. And oftentimes these things show up and they just shift our emotionality. You know, we don't take it seriously because it's just we're used to being upset. We know it's generational. If I'm expressing consistently hot energy, anger towards small things, typically someone passed the energy down to me. So yeah.
I know last week we were talking about how anger is a secondary emotion. And that was the first time that I was educated on that, learning that anger is a secondary emotion. And it kind of like make me start thinking about like a lot of times when we go through things in life, or it can be something traumatic, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, a lot of time the first emotion may be sadness. And sometimes we can become so sad that we become anger, or we can be sad can turn into fear can increase into anger. So having those different levels of emotion that brings you to that point. Doc, do you want to talk about that?
You bet. And good evening. Thanks for having me on. And hello to the panel. Thanks for those who are watching.
Hello.
So I say from a clinical perspective, but I mean, I use this for myself. As far as when it comes to anger, if we look at it, it is a secondary emotion. Something else was going on, and then usually fear or anger tie in. But also teach people that anger comes whenever we feel inconvenienced. So if you get a flat tire and you're mad at those may pop tires, you know, they may pop at any time, but yeah, I'm angry because I'm delayed. I go to the bank, there's a long line, 12 o'clock. I'm thinking that the manager should know their busy times. I feel inconvenienced. I'm in a relationship. How many times did I have to say? How many times did I have to ask? How many times do we keep having this conversation? Oh, I swear to God, because I feel inconvenienced. I'm in a relationship and we might break up. And if why are you so mad? I mean, you should be happy I'm doing this for you. Because I feel inconvenienced, having to start over, having to say hello again, having to share stories again. So anyway, I think of anger as a secondary emotion. However, if you consider what you feel inconvenienced about, the fact that someone traumatized you or harmed you, abused you as a child, or you dealt with betrayal trauma, physical, all kind, neglect, it may seem like, well, I'm not delayed or nothing's caused a inconvenience. The fact that I think about it, and now I've had all of these events in life that have been impacted, the fact that I've been impacted by my previous trauma and have to go through that, how long have I had to deal with it before I even realized it was trauma that I was impacted by? So I teach again that please examine what's the inconvenience.
So when you talk about examining the inconvenience, do you teach them about the triggers, or teaching them to understand what basically understanding their triggers when you have these clients that you're working with? Because I know a lot of times in life we go through things, and instead of us taking accountability for the things that we're experiencing, we put that responsibility off on somebody else. And a lot of times we know better, but we don't do better. And I think a lot of times why we look for things external, because we really don't know how to deal with the things that we're going through that cause some type of trauma. Like I've
Mhm.
experienced people be extremely upset because they may not feel heard. Or
Yeah.
And when I look at people like that, the first thing I think of is like, man, this person might never been heard as a child. They probably suffer from some form of neglect, some form of abandonment. So what they would do is they get in other spaces, and while they're in that spaces, they would try to point the fingers outward, as opposed to saying like, you know what, that happened to me. And even though that happened to me and I didn't deserve for that to happen to me, moving forward, this is how I'm going to learn from that. Because a lot of times we look at things in our life as losses, as opposed to looking at things as lessons. So I know for me, like when anytime something bad happened in my life, or anything traumatic, or things that I feel that I didn't deserve, I look at it like, you know what, I had to stop looking at things like I loved and I lost. I had to start looking at things like, you know what can I take away from this situation? What did I learn? That way I can see the beauty in what, even if it was like something that was so jacked up, it allowed me to see the beauty in something so ugly that I'm walking away with a lesson.
Yeah, Jasmine, that's a dope perspective that you was able to come about. For some people, getting to that point, it's a complete learning process. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say it took me years to like step out of the realm of placing accountability outwardly, right? Because I didn't understand that anger was a secondary emotion neither. I just knew, excuse the language, I got angry as hell, quick as hell, right? But a part of me would at the same time would be like, damn, Rue, like, bro, calm down in the midst of that. So when I realized like it was coming from within me, then that's when everything changed. But it's like some people be so traumatized by whatever may have happened to them to cause them to be angry, because we say anger is a secondary emotion. So that means it's actually an effect of something else. Like it took me a while to realize that. And honestly, I think that some people don't realize that because it's always somebody else's fault. Like some people never had a time to actually pause and look at the dynamic from, I guess we could say, the outside looking in, because that's the only way we can honestly, I believe, begin to observe ourselves is when we step out the situation and be able to say like, damn, I was wrong. But again, a lot of people, you know, I believe they just can't do that because it's so customary to, I think like anger is a culture thing too for us as a people. And a lot of times, again, people just can't step out of the situation and view it from a different dynamic to be able to see their wrongdoings as well. Because trauma is like also a box, you know what I mean, in my perspective too. And a lot of people are stuck in that box.
I want to respond about the triggers. What I say, if by the time you recognize the triggers, it's actually cooked. It's too late. Let's do an example. Can anyone will one of you please name something that we get triggered about?
I was triggered last night.
What happened? What were you triggered about?
You didn't see Black Man Show?
I did. I was part of it too. But how did it trigger you?
Because the woman lied on her husband and to her kids and to the people that he messed with his kids, and that wasn't true. And I've actually dealt with that mess. I've dealt with someone messing with me who's from the bloodline, because he's not family, he's just from the bloodline. And I had to fight off a rapist. So yeah. So but when people make light, when people play games with something so serious, it pisses me off.
Okay, but why? I mean, that sounds like a silly question, like duh, but like, why?
Because it's a serious situation that people really deal with, and it's not. I don't find nothing funny about it. I don't find anything to make light of about it. And the fact is, also, you use this to attack your husband. She's a evil bitch. Okay, and the thing is, I don't play with that. I don't play with sexual harassment, how people do that mess at work. I don't play with those are not games to play with, to use to hurt people, because actual people are dealing with these issues. Not just women, but men too. People are dealing with these issues.
Right. So, okay. So thank you.
And I was also angry because I wasn't physically in front of her to punch her in the face.
Right. So let's go back to, I heard you loud and clear say, because I've had some BS happen to me. Once you are aware of what would trigger you, if someone lies on me, even hearing someone lie on someone else, someone having to relive a similar experience, those all trigger me to want to hurt a person, and is stemmed from, rooted in an experience you had. When the person does the work to recognize how they were wronged and how they were felt, how they experienced pain, and what's the ripple effect, if they learn here what I call risk factors, what puts me at risk to be triggered, what puts me at risk to feel a certain way. So a lot of people say, once I'm triggered, I will, boom. Once I'm triggered, I react. I say, if you can, learn what even gets you to feeling. So the fact that I didn't feel hurt, like I reported when I was hurt, no one listened to me. That's a risk factor that I will blow up if I hear someone being lied on, because I know they're not going to be believed. I know that there's no second chances. Their record is doomed. So again, the awareness to what triggers you. So that way, when we are triggered, well, one, they'll be reduced. And then if we do run into trigger, we won't have this, it won't have the same impact. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? I'm not saying it's right. I'm just saying that's what I
guess what you're saying, but I'm the type of person that there's certain things that will trigger me regardless of me knowing about it. Now, because I've seen that episode years back, right? And
that was my first
I just
time.
forgot. I knew she was trifling, but I forgot what happened. And so I was still therefore I was still caught off guard by the situation last night.
Yep, still has an impact. It still hits.
That was my first time seeing that episode last night. I've never seen it before. Even for me, experiencing sexual abuse that was traumatizing. I got to the point where, I mean, I guess everybody internalized things differently. So for me, like, it took me years to understand what being triggered by certain things and certain behaviors and certain characteristics as other people. And I had to realize, like, I had to allow people to be themselves, but I don't have to tolerate certain things out of certain people, even though whatever they may do or may say may be triggering to me. I know for a long time, and I was in denial, because a lot of times when we're on this healing journey, especially in the beginning part, we're always in denial because we think we're always right. Nobody knows us. Even though you may have somebody that may be educated or have experienced certain things, we don't want to listen to them because it's us and we don't really want to face ourselves. So for me, I realized, like, throughout the years, it was being told to me, like, oh, you have rejection. I had an issue with rejection. I felt like I was rejected by parents. I was rejected by family. Then I got into relationships, rejected with that. And a lot of times when you have people in situations like that that has a hard time dealing with rejection, what they tend to do is overgive. So that's what I was doing. I was overgiving my time, overgiving my resources, over loving people that really didn't deserve the love that I was giving them. And once I started truly tuning into myself and becoming so aware of what Jasmine is, who Jasmine is, what Jasmine really wants out of life, and how I want to operate, I started looking at myself like, you know what? I do have a problem with rejection, because typically when I had that issue, what I would do is shut down. So most people that look at me, my face would be like, I wouldn't be smiling as much. I'll be so stern. I look mean all the time. And the light that I had before, it was no longer light. It was darkness. So the more I became fully aware of who I am, I started to accept the fact, like, man, I did have an issue with the rejection, and how am I going to move forward? So instead of shutting down, the shutting down part, what it did was it disabled my ability to communicate effectively. So it wasn't that I didn't know how to communicate. I refused to communicate. because that was my protective barrier, me shutting down. And the more I just started like expressing, like, you know what, you did X, Y, and Z to me. Like a lot of times when we feel these emotions, we express those emotions. So if I'm angry, most people, most women, especially women, when they're angry, the first thing they do is they yell, they disrespect, they do angry acts. If you see a woman that's super emotional and she's sad, she's crying, and she's doing all of these things. Sometimes I think people just be doing all this crying because they want the attention, because you get more attention being a victim as opposed to putting in that work for yourself, especially since we living in a time where attention is currency. But once I feel like when you're really becoming fully aware of who you are as an individual, it's easier for you to take the accountability for yourself and say, you know what, this is what's wrong with me, and it's not nobody else's job to fix me but me. So I need to put in that work. Even putting in that work is lonely, because that's when it's really you versus you. It's not you and your partner. It's not you and your kids or you and your friends. It's you versus yourself, because though they may be there to support you and help you along the way, at the end of the day, when you lay down, you're the only person in your head is yourself. So you got to be able to dig yourself out that hole for real.
I get a perspective on
I
this.
think. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Doctor. I'll go after you.
Well, I was going to ask, and I may be butchering your name. I apologize. Daru. I think Daru was asking.
Yes.
But like, how did you get that level of awareness? How? I mean, you don't need to answer now, but that would be my question. Like, man, you were spot on. But some people have to go through some trials before they.
Because that's what it. Okay, so to be honest, man, like my whole healing journey. And I don't mean like to dog my dad, but it was like, yo, from a young age, I yearned my dad. And it was like, I want to say this first and foremost for anybody who's listening. I think we need to get a young thugs, hoodlums, or whatever people choose to call them, a second, third, fifth, and 10th opportunity, because it was like, I walked in them shoes and it was like, all right, growing up in the hood in Death Valley, right? It's big folks now. And this man telling us how to get hood rich and stuff. So this is what everything started for me. They telling us how to get hood rich, right? And I'm like, dang, all six of his brothers dead. 8 of his cousins in jail. And it's 14 of us under this dude. Excuse my language, but who the F supposed to survive, right? So I started thinking like, yeah, this math ain't mathing to me. So it made me start thinking outside the box. Like, I got to think bigger than what everybody else telling me. So I seen like it was more like a mold your mind into a specific way of thinking type of thing, right? The gang life mentality. But it was like I understood it because I found in them like what I felt like the guidance I was looking for from my dad. And my dad wasn't around. So it caused me to like, man, look, it's a little embarrassing, but it was like my growth training. You know, I used to Google stuff like how to be a mature man. Like, what does it mean to be a great man? When I tell y'all, I read so many Google articles on like what it means to be a man, a black man, a white man, like all type of different type of mature men. And it was like the number one thing that I always heard was like, know yourself. And it was like when I used to read this stuff, I used to be like, man, this is bigger than that, because I know me, like I'm 6'1", 200 plus pounds. I like light-skinned women, pancakes for breakfast. But I'm like, when I read this stuff, it's like they talking about something else. So it was like I always found myself like looking for that something else. And then I never wanted to like talk to the doctor because I didn't want them to like prescribe me as like bipolar or something, right? Because it'd be like something you said, like by the time you notice the triggers, it's too late. It wasn't like that with me. It'd be like this angry dude, right? So I used to say like, I'm Sean, Jeezy, and Rue. Sean was like, fuck you, I whack everything. Jeezy like, let's get money. And then Daru was like the prospective gentleman, like the most highest self me. And it was like, when I would get angry, I would hear my higher self. I described it as like, Rue, calm down, bro. Think about this. Think about it, Rue. But the rage would be like kicking down the metal door, and I would never be able to calm it down. So I used to say to myself, like, if what I was doing was correct internally, I would not feel guilty about this, right? So I heard so many people like, that's just who I am. You know, after they do what they do or say whatever they say, like, that's just who I am. And I used to say to myself, like, ain't no way that's just who you is, because when I do the angry shit that I do, that ain't just who I am. Like something inside of me is causing this stuff to happen.
Right.
So fast forward, you know, like I jerked around on the journey a little bit, but everything changed when I heard my baby heartbeat. When I heard his heartbeat, my whole life changed. I was like, yeah, I gotta say F this street stuff. And then I prayed for a baby boy too. So it was like when I found out he was a boy, honestly, excuse my language, it scared the shit out of me, because I'm like, bro, I don't know if these articles about being a man was real. Like, and I ain't got no damn daddy in my life. I don't know what the hell a daddy is supposed to be. And I'm finna be a damn daddy. And I feel like at moments I be angry out of control. I don't want my boy to grow up like this. So I started like taking it a lot seriouser. So I ain't gonna lie, like I put myself in therapy, and it was like I love mind games, right? I'm analytical. I love mind games. I pay attention to stuff unintentionally. When you talk, I see your finger twitching, and I ain't even trying to pay attention to that. So I like psych into people's mind. When I went to therapy, like the lady tried to play like the staring contest with me, and it just never worked, man. But I got into the Bible. No. It didn't work. Not with that lady. It didn't work with me. Not with that lady. I felt like I was playing mind games with her while she was trying to play mind games with me. So it's like what like altered my perception again was like I started reading the Bible, but I didn't read it from a religious perspective. It was like something was calling me. And I found myself paying attention to stuff like Jesus said that wasn't nobody pointing on, like the Spirit of God dwell in you, like it's not me that do the work, but the Father that dwell in me. So then I read this book called Souls of My Brothers. And again, that's what made me point out, like, man, they talking about something bigger, like it's something else inside of them, like, you know what I mean, that's leading them. So then that's when I started noticing, like, damn, all the times where something horrible could have happened to me, I heard something say, hey, Rue, turn right here. So I started saying to myself, like, I need to tap into whatever this intuition is. And it was like when I started tapping into that intuition, honestly, it started guiding me. And what put me in my deepest motion was like, I moved into this apartment that I'm in right now, huge apartment. And it was like battling like depression and stuff like that. And I was praying like, man, God, I need you to help me. And I heard God say, you ever thought it wasn't a demon? Have you ever thought that, what did he say? He said, you ever thought that maybe it's not a demon? Because I was praying like, Lord, get this demon up off me. Then he said, you ever thought that maybe it's not a demon? You ever thought that maybe it's the immature, insecure part of you that never healed? And I started laughing like, what the fuck? But I was like, okay, like that was God. And then I heard him say, hurt people. And that's something I believe. Like I believe everything has a cause and an effect. And I think like what I was doing come from something that happened to me, right? And I just don't remember. And that's when I started looking even deeper. Like I didn't know we still store memory and emotion in our body. I didn't know you could truly have a mind-body disconnect. So when I started reading about all of this stuff, I was like, what's going on? Like you don't hear about this stuff in the hood. You know what I mean? You don't hear about this stuff in the hood. So it was like continuously changing my mind, man. And like I said, it just kept causing me to dig deeper and want to comprehend more and more about myself. And I just realized like everything that I'm looking for, all of it dwell within me. You know, I think that the world teach us to look outside of ourselves for everything, right? And we don't find nothing outside of ourselves one way or another. The plan, the idea, the actions we choose to take, all of that is motivated from within us. And I think that's the most powerful portion. The man is like the authentic self. When you look inside of yourself for everything, and I think that's where my awareness come from. Like I started to go against the social norm of, again, thinking outside of myself. Thinking outside of myself. And I decided like I had to take accountability for my actions. And when I started taking accountability, it made me, again, point the finger at myself. So really awareness came from blaming myself, not wanting to put it on nobody else because I didn't want to be a burden. And then plus, you know, my son, trauma stuff. Like I used to think I was born racist, bro. I used to think I was born racist. You couldn't tell me racism was a taught behavior. You couldn't tell me that until like I started hanging around my ex-girlfriend, best friend, and she was white. And I started feeling guilty, like, damn, I'm doing everything the white people won't want them to do to me. Because I'm like, this hunky hanging around, but really she probably want to noose everybody. But I couldn't find, like, you know how we pick up energy, vibe. I couldn't sense like nothing ungenuine about this person. And it caused me to start looking at myself. And when I started paying attention to, like, I know it may sound crazy, but I started noticing my thoughts was coming from the side. I hope it don't sound too crazy, but I started paying attention to, like, where the hell these thoughts coming from. And man, when I started catching it, like, I started sensing the thought before it even, I guess, get to fruition of being a thought where you could see it in your mind. I more so felt it coming from deep down within me. And when I caught it, that's when I had like a huge epiphany of getting beat up by a white cop when I was 12 years old. And I was like, damn, I done had all these great moments in my life. And the whole time I still been living through trauma. And I had no idea that you can suffer so much, but still have such a beautiful life. You know what I mean? So it's honestly, it's just a huge story of what brought me to awareness and what keep me in awareness. I hope I ain't talk too much.
No, I mean, there's nothing crazy about what you just said.
Appreciate you
Makes
sharing.
sense.
Could we get Sarhel up in here? I know he wanted to say something.
Yeah, so I just wanted to add perspective. I don't think we give ourselves the room to be human. I think a lot of us, especially us critical overthinkers, we feel something and then we judge ourselves for what we feel, and then we analyze while we're judging ourselves for what we feel, and then we feel some type of way for judging ourselves for analyzing how we feel about what we feel. So I think we got to give ourselves some grace to be human and to understand that anger is a lens through which you see something. It's not a bad thing. Like, being angry doesn't mean that you have a problem. It might mean that there is a problem, but it doesn't mean that you have a problem. I think where we make the mistake is anger is our default go-to emotion. Like, so when we're frustrated, we get angry. When we get disappointed, we're angry. It's like our default emotion. I think that's where we have the issue at. But I think we got to give ourselves the space to have a human moment. And before we make a move, sit in it for a minute. Like, that's one of the exercises that I've done that makes me really analyze, like, I'm angry, right? But am I overreacting to something? If you sit there for a minute before you go off, before you cuss people out, before you write people out, before you say to heck with everybody, just sit in it for a minute. Like, really sit there. And you guys ever heard the example of, you write an email, leave it for a little bit, come back the next day, don't send it, and then tomorrow you might look at it a whole lot differently, right? It's you sit in it for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Like, because if you send it right there in that moment, that anger is like a lens. So you guys know, like, if you taking a picture on your phone, you guys know, take a picture and then you got those different filters. So make it black and white or sepia, or add some cool to it. That's kind of what our emotions do. It adds color to it, and based off that color, it gives us a perspective of what it is. So before you move in anger, like if you're married, before you respond angrily to your spouse or angrily to your children, or let's reverse this, before you get angry with your parent, sit in it for a second. You know what I mean? And you will find out that you're seeing through that lens, and that lens is making the picture look like something that it might not be. You might just need to switch that lens. Instead of anger, maybe there's a need for empathy, or where maybe there's no need for empathy. Maybe you need to do something with action, right? It's just lens. And I think what happens with us, we don't sit in it long enough. As soon as I feel angry, I got to pop off. I have to cuss somebody out because I'm feeling this way. And then after you cuss them out, now you analyzing why you cussed him out. You got to go make apologies. Now you feel crazy. I hope I'm not bipolar, because we don't sit still and really digest what we feel. We move too soon. So I'm just saying that for everybody who's listening. And I think this is why a lot of young men are in jail today, because they acted off that anger. They didn't sit long enough to make it make sense. So give yourself some space to be human. Sit there for a minute. Give yourself some grace. You're not crazy because you feel what you feel, but don't act on it first. Sit in it for a little bit.
You had just said something. Go ahead, beautifully. I made it.
Oh, I'm gonna say that's the bad thing about blackouts. You don't have time to think about things. And I had a situation when I was in high school, and me and my boyfriend and our friends went to the zoo, and we're eating in the dining area, and some old lady kicks her drink over and splashes on me. I thought I took it as she kicked her drink at me and stuff. But blacked out in a second. My boyfriend just sitting there, and I'm going off and getting up to walk over there to the woman. His older brother, gets me by the shorts, and he's just sitting there holding me. I'm still standing there, yeah. Right. And it's like years later in my young adult years, I'm thinking back on that moment. I was like, it could have been just an accident. She could have been just frustrated because her drink fell off the tray. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah, blackouts are horrible.
Back to what Sir Hill was saying, he said that's why a lot of our young black men are incarcerated, right? So for those who don't know, I worked in the juvenile prison for 7 years with juveniles, majority African American, a small percentage Hispanic, and we probably had like a few, I want to say no more than 5 or 10 Caucasian kids. And it made me think about it from like last week when we was talking about anger being a secondary emotion or whatever. But a lot of these boys, they experience trauma. It's not that they just being bad and they just out on the streets. No, a lot of times, even me being a sexual assault victim, we always focus on the women and we focus on the girls. But it's so many, like, because I had access to a lot of stuff inside the jail. And I was one of the people doing the paperwork that would report back to the counselors that would then go forward to the courts. A lot of these young boys was sexually assaulted, not just by women, but by men too. So these people that was their fathers, these was people that was their stepdads, uncles, their basketball coaches, folks at church, people that we think that we can trust. So a lot of times they're in this situation, and on top of them experiencing that, their mom on drugs, they daddy been in jail. So we had literally had like generations of kids in there, 4 brothers in there, then they daddies and they uncles locked up. So it's like, it's really, even that alone, me working in an environment alone like that, and I'm seeing like, okay, I was able to put my own traumas to the side, but seeing other people go through that trauma, experience that stuff was extremely traumatic. It was traumatic for me, seeing that these little boys was going through these things, and these the people that we want to. These boys gonna grow up to be men, right? And these are the people that supposed to be leading our community. But if there's no help for them at a young age, like how can we move forward? How y'all get what I'm trying to say? Because I'm kind of like 12 right now. I kind of turned 12, but yeah.
I just had a quick demonstration. I just wanted to show from what Sir Hale said. I think is so unique, and hopefully I can pull this off here on the camera. A lot of the adolescents that I work with are preteens, to help them understand what you just said or the way you said it. I show them this book, and in the book, I said, because your mind, pending what you receive and how you respond to it. And so, at first, some of these things we don't even know. So I'm not saying their mind is blank, but I am saying that previous to the experience, you're probably going off of someone else's story. So even when we hear about black men being abused by the police, I know the story is in my brain. So I've actually painted now I painted a picture in my mind of what could have happened. So I hear the story and boom, I put it in my mind. So I have it there. Okay. So I have this data in my mind, or the stuff that's there, but it's not colored yet. Now the colors that I add to it is up to me, or the way I let it play out. The more anger, the more colorful. And so I have the information, but how you respond to it or how you color it is all up to you. And then just much like this coloring, I might get upset because I went out the line. So I meant that should have been blue. I didn't sit on it long enough to really determine how I wanted to be, I just reacted. And so then how do you back up? Because some events, once you do them, there's no return. So it's critical that pause you were talking about, that email pause, that lashing of the tongue, those fist fights. Where's that pause at? So you don't get stuck with that. And if possible, if ever possible, just to do a total reset, create a whole new narrative. So anyway, that's just kind of my visual demonstration that I do was based on what you were talking about.
You messing with our heads with them 3 books, okay? We went from blank to lines to color.
Right.
It's wait. Wasn't it that first one blank?
Those are
That
3
was
different
dope.
books. Oh, just one book. Okay.
What?
Yeah, it's just all how you perceive it. I mean, is an illusion, but again, the story behind it. So this is just one book, and it's blank. It's blank. And then I say, it's just all how you see. This is still one, but how you receive the information and how it paints the narrative, how it creates in your brain. How it creates in your brain. These are the pictures. How you color that, what you do with it is up to you. And some people get loosey-goosey, they get angry, the emotional, color, rage, all that, and they fill that in there, and then boom.
Okay. That's crazy.
Man, when you get the point, hopefully. I mean, Sir L, did that kind of match what you were talking about?
Yeah, that was
I
dope.
think what you said was
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah,
I
that
kind of
was
like
awesome.
that.
Right? That was awesome.
And I want to add to that. In Buddhism, we call that mindfulness, being present in the moment. Because you're present, if it's not physically happening to you, then it's not happening to you. And oftentimes, we allow ourselves to get into certain energies that aren't us. This person is acting this energy out. Like we said, we take it personal, but it's just spirit. It's just the energy that's come over that person. All humans want to feel good. We want to feel love. We want to feel joy. But it's the other stuff that kind of blocks us from having access to that. Because oftentimes, as Black people, we don't have the tools to know how to keep our calm, how to properly breathe, how to stay present in the moment, how to be detached, how to be the observer. You have to learn. And that we are the generation that has the most access to those tools and that information prior to other Black people. So it's our responsibility to teach others how to keep their cool and how to breathe and how to stay present with whatever tool, whatever your form of healing is, whether you're a doctor, whether you're a therapist, whatever it is. We all are here to keep the frequency high in other humans. And oftentimes, if someone is experiencing that anger, that rage, you keep your frequency high so that their energy don't overcome you. You lower your frequency, you're right in that same war as that person. And then you make that you, and it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, like before I started embarking on the healing journey, I used to always read this book, The 48 Laws of Power. But normally, I'm not gonna lie, I never read the full book. I will always go to the beginning of the book, the table of contents, which is kind of the lazy way to do it, but it gives you enough context in that table of contents where you can say, okay, well, this is the law, this is what this law is about, and go on about your life. It was one law that kind of like helped me at first. And it was when you control your emotions, you control the situation. And I didn't really understood that at first. So all I did was shut down because I didn't want anybody to see me being angry. I didn't want nobody seeing me being sad. I didn't want nobody to get like, in their mind, they felt like they didn't affect me anyway. They did, but I just didn't show it publicly. I get in front of people, I put on this facade like nothing never bothered me, but then behind closed doors, I was dealing with that stuff. The more I started becoming aware of who I was, prior to me wanting to do this journey, I was using, Frankie had brought up the word spirits, and all I could think about was alcohol. I know I had went live and I was talking about the spirit of alcohol, and I didn't fully understand what the alcohol was doing to me. I was talking about how I drank so much that it was sad. If I was to tell you guys how much I was drinking, it was embarrassing. And what I used that alcohol, it was pretty much something like I would call like a pacifier or a bandage to kind of cover up the feeling, the pain that I was feeling, because that's really what a bandage is. You have a kid, they scrape their knee, you kiss their little boo boo, put a band-aid on it. In their mind, it's no longer pain there because you covered it up. So that's how I was using the alcohol as a bandage to cover up the pain that I was feeling. But then once I was sober again, I felt the pain again, because most Black people, I would say we are very high functioning depression. A lot of us, when we have these traumas or we have these things going on in our life, we're taught to keep going, keep going, keep going. You got to pay the bills. You got kids to take care of. You got to provide for your family. You got to do this. You got a business to run. So we're taught to keep moving, regardless of what we're feeling or what type of things we're going through. And we never get a chance to sit in what it is that we're going, sit and experience what it is that we're supposed to sit and experience. Because once you take that time to sit in it, then that's when you become fully aware of who you are as an individual. That's just my perspective. I knew for the longest I was just overgiving, and I just kept moving. And the more I kept moving, the more I didn't feel it. But I know it was certain things that I wanted to do. I wanted to do in my life. And in order for me to be a better mother, to be a better woman, and somewhere down the line, I don't want to spend the rest of my life alone, right? So in order for me to be all those things that I know that I desire as an individual, I had to put in that work. And I think that's the problem with our community, even for women. And sometimes I do blame men for allowing women to do certain things, because what men typically tend to do is be so nurturing to women and their behaviors. It's almost like you guys are condoning the negative behavior toward women, as opposed to allowing that woman to take responsibility for her actions and the things that she's experienced. I've been in relationships where I feel like it was my responsibility to heal somebody, but the more I'm trying to work on this person, then I'm not working on myself, because I'm thinking this person emotional needs supersedes everything that I have going on, even though I experienced all of this trauma growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know how, Jasmine? So do you know how you was it because you hit not rock bottom? Was it because you had a significant amount of problems that you said, I'm tired, enough's enough? But how did you recognize that you were doing too much, overextending, doing too much for others than for yourself? How did you recognize that?
Well, I started feeling like I was neglecting myself. I feel like I was neglecting myself. And a lot of times as people, that's what we tend to do. We overgive. We overextend ourselves. So I'm like, okay, in my mind, I'm working full time. I'm a full-time business owner. I'm a full-time mom. This person need me to show up. This person need me to show up. And like throughout my childhood, I knew what it felt like to have people turn their backs and to have the abandonment and the rejection. So I always made a vow to myself that because I experienced that, the people that I care about the most, I don't want them to experience or feel the things that I felt. So what that did in return caused me to overgive my time, my energy, my resources. I was making a lot of money. I was just dishing money out, and I wasn't really enjoying my money for myself, because every time I turned around, somebody had their hand out. So I felt like if I was in a position to give, don't complain about it. Just give. That's how my grandma was growing up. She always felt like she fed everybody in the neighborhood. So it's enough food in this house where we can feed and give out to everybody. And I kind of like adopted that same mindset. Like if I have enough of it and I have all my necessities met, it's okay for me to give freely, because when I give freely, I know I'm giving it out of love. It's not I'm giving it because I want it in return. But then there came a point where I did start wanting some stuff in return, because I was getting exhausted. Mm-hmm. I started feeling depleted, to answer your question.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I've dealt with abandonment issues also with my family and stuff, you know. Like one incident is where one of my aunts was down here visiting. They were supposed to be taking all the kids out bowling. They forgot about me. I was the only one forgotten. And so I had issues with abandonment because it's like they forgot about me. It's like, how do you forget a child that's like 3 blocks down from the house? So, yeah, that put me in a situation to where any situations of being forgotten or being abandoned would just anger me because I dealt with that already. You know what I'm saying? So I'm, when I do things, I will make sure that nobody was forgotten, even though they would continuously not be there for me. Like when my cousins would have birthday parties, I would go, but when I have a party or event, they wouldn't show up. So it's like they kept it going, but yet I was still being there for them. And I just got to the point where I was just like, I'd rather stay at home. Because it's not a 50-50 relationship.
When I look at stuff, I'm just listening to you say 50-50. It don't matter what it is. No relationship is 50-50, whether it's a friendship, a relationship with your kids, a romantic relationship. I just feel like as long as the energy is reciprocated in some shape, form, or fashion, that's all that matters. It's never going to be 50-50. Like if
I'm not saying that it has to be 50-50, but you see what I'm saying is that it's give and take.
Right.
It wasn't give and take in this relationship. It was take. So I had to leave them behind until they woke up.
So it's important to understand, if you are a giver, you're going to attract takers. Like that's one thing that I've learned. If you are a giver, you're going to attract takers. And but that giving doesn't come from a genuine place. And the reason I say this is because when we start giving from that broken place, what we're really doing is we're doing for others what we wish was done for us. That's really what's going on. And even if we're giving money, it may not be money we want. Like we may be giving our money to show we care and we see that you have a need. I want to communicate that I see you and then I got your back. So we're using our resources to have that point. And all we want is a little of that back in return. Most people who give a lot ask for so little. And what pisses you off is the fact that if I give you $1,000, I don't want $1,000. I just want to know you appreciate me. And the fact that you can take this $1,000 and then when I need so little from you, you don't give it. That's what pisses me off. Now I'm done with everybody. Don't talk to me. Don't call me. I'm done because I give so much and ask for so little. And that comes from a very broken place. So I say this to everybody. If you're going to give, I love what you said, Jasmine, moments ago. It's got to come from a place of love. It can't come from a place of trauma, because if it comes from that place of trauma, you're going to always be disappointed, because the truth is no one can give you enough to fix that trauma. That's work that you have to do for yourself.
Yeah.
I know for a long time I was giving from now that you put it like that, I was giving from a place of trauma. I was just giving. And then I, like, say for instance, I had a situation where I was dealing with a guy and everything was going good. And I just felt myself like over giving. And then that small little percentage that I was asking for, I'm like, I know I'm not asking for too much, but this person is taking and receiving everything that I'm giving, taking it, everything. Now putting up the X and said, I'm not going to take it. And when I expressed that to my aunt, because she's a very spiritual person, always talking about God and everything, she's told me, sweetheart, you got to learn how to stop giving. Givers got to know when to stop giving, because takers don't know when to stop taking. And I didn't really grasp, because a lot of times when we dealing with things in life, it's hard for us to kind of like embrace that concept right at first. We always got to, for me, experience is the best teacher. And it took me a while to kind of learn from others' experiences, as opposed to put myself through an additional form of trauma to learn things on my own. So I had to start listening to other people pain and trauma in their story, so that I can, I'm like a movie that I'm watching, because I don't want to experience that. So when you go throughout this journey and you're working on yourself, and you fully become aware of who you are as an individual, I think that's when you learn to start set boundaries. A lot of times we don't have boundaries set up. We don't have boundaries. We have this open door policy, and everybody just coming and going in our life, coming and going in our life. And the more we just keep letting them come and go, our life is like a revolving door. They just coming and going, coming and going. We don't set these boundaries. And because we don't set these boundaries, all we're doing is setting ourselves up for failure, for heartbreak, for disappointment. And then we're angry, then we're bitter, then we're carrying this stuff around for the rest of our life, and we're living out of fear.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd like to combine a couple of these.
Mm-hmm.
And then Zen Frankie, I want to end my comment with tapping into that mindfulness that you were talking about. One of the clinical perspective of why some of these things happen, because Jasmine, what I just heard you say are like the results of like the trauma happened here. These are the results. This is what happens. This is how I act on it. Same thing with beautiful animated. You have some definite protections that are in place to keep you safe.
Yeah.
So when these traumas happen, they get stored in the brain. And please note, at least clinically, psychology, maybe other ways is not the same, because I know about chakra work, you can actually work through some of it or heal trauma. But psychology, trauma never is cured. It can never cure trauma. So when you do the medical scan, something could have happened, a car accident, an assault, some of those sexual assaults. You scan the brain, you can see the damage that happened to the brain, and you can scan it 10 years later, 20 years later, and still see that damage in that part of the brain. And that's where trauma lives, and it impacts 3 sections of the brain. So your reasoning gets hijacked. If you ever find yourself saying, man, why do I keep getting the same person over and over and over? Why do I keep doing the same thing over and over? Like, what was I thinking? Yeah, because our reasoning in the situation gets hijacked. I can have a vehicle with one of these OnStar systems or one of these, help me or whatever systems. And I'm sitting at a red light. Someone comes to my car, to do my windows or whatever, but they stick a gun in the car and say, get out. Right now, that vision, everything. Now, the body is designed defensively. This protects the eye, and the eye protects the skin protects it. Everything is to protect. To prevent from going into shock, I may respond like I'm in alert mode. I get out the car. I'm reasoning. My reasoning is hijacked right now, similar to this hijack. They only take my money and stuff. They don't take the car. I get back in the car, and then I say, God dang it. How come I just didn't yell help or call the police? This thing was right here. But I was psychologically hijacked, and so I can't respond the same. And we can get into more later, but just quickly, if I can just quickly, there are 3 sections, 3 not multiple personalities, but there's a protector in me. There's a victim. There's a part of me that feels like a victim, and there's a part of me that's called a witness. And the victim is nasty. The victim is wicked. And I gave this example on the platform. If I do a triathlon and I run, swim, and bike, and I've done it for years, and I join competitions, and when I did it, when I get out the water, I just had to deal with being cold, and I run. But now I retired. And I go to watch practices. When I see that person get out of the water and this van pulls up with like a team and they wrap them up in aluminum foil like this potato, like a baked potato, and there's a warming jacket, my victim, man, are you serious? Oh, and I'm going ballistic because I'm thinking you are not suffering like I had to suffer. Blood, sweat, and tears and be cold. You're weak, man. So some of these responses that we give seems like rage, but that rage is because we're able to do we're doing trauma bonding, victim bonding, and we're reacting to that, And that's why I think what Zen was saying about the mindfulness, because we don't always have to react, or what Sir Hale was saying, sit on it and know that I didn't cause this, I didn't want this, I didn't produce this, but I am playing off that narrative, that tape. And will I be okay to sit in the moment, be more aware, and then respond? So I just wanted to add that piece about it.
You had said something about victim. You said it was victim, witness, and what else?
And protector. Protector is pretty wicked because the protector is also known as the perp, meaning by any means necessary. I'm going to make sure the little boy in me never has to feel that again. I don't know if you know people who communicate. For your listeners who have earpieces, I'm going to make some noise. I don't know if you know people who talk like this. Swear to God. No, I swear to God. Oh, man. Boom, hitting the table. And oh, swear to, people who talk like that. It's like, calm down. I am calm. Well, they're taking off from where their little person internally, again, not multiple personality, where my little kid left off, I'm responding for them. My little kid wasn't heard. The little kid in me felt neglected, abandoned, rejected, undervalued. The protector in me is going to make sure I got this shorty. So y'all not taking me serious? I am calm, but it seems like I got to go off before people listen to me. That's the protector.
Can I intervene and say something really quick? Well,
yes.
Ask the question. So, what you explaining is that we have a developmental personality, and where, you saying the little kid was that would that be considered a stagnant part of us? So, whereas we are now overprotective because the little kid was like either what you said, abandoned, mislooked, ran over, or etc.
Right. For the protector's role, it never appears as too much. It never appears. And if I say, I'm going to work on this, I'm going to do some work on this, when I'm telling my protectors, I'm going to put them out of business. And my protector's like, no, you won't. And that's why we don't recognize red flags. I can get into a new relationship and we say, oh, red flags. Why did I still do that? Am I stupid or what? But some of those traumas I've learned to survive. And I know that I know that. Why am I going to try something new? Why would my protector says, why would I let you try something new? We know how to deal with that. It sucks, but we know how to deal with that. That those stuff we don't know how to deal with. So we might accept, we might invite and welcome and endure bullshit, all in the name of the protector saying, I got this. I know how this works. Come on. And we keep getting in the same relationship thinking we're going to change that person or do better this time. And it just repeats because the protector thinks helping you.
I have a question. So how do you go about then, I guess, bringing the security to that overlooked, that child in you? That's what I'm gonna say. And I'm asking that honestly for a personal reason. I feel like this is the last part of my healing journey that I'm on, and I'm gonna speak vaguely, but it's as clear as I can see it. Right. Over the past maybe month and a half, I keep seeing this vision of myself as a child in a dark room, in a dark corner. And every time I see this vision, I don't know, it's like, when you see a vision, like you don't see what's in front of you, like you in the head in the vision. And every time I come out of this vision, like in real life, I'm shedding tears, right? So I'm figuring like, dang, like something honestly traumatically happened to me. I would say maybe like a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago, I seen the vision again. And it was like, when I came back to me, I mean, like, damn, it felt like I was having like an emotional breakdown, right? So I'm saying to myself, like, damn, how do I get to that little child that's in me to find out like whatever is going on? And I found that like so much about myself, like with the awareness and everything. So thus far, that's been the hardest journey for me. And I feel like that's like the last piece, but that pain that I don't know. I feel like I feel the pain inside of me every time I see that vision, but I can't find the source of it though. You know what I mean? So I guess I'm asking a question like, how do you bring security to that like that little person in you that you feel like was like overlooked or whatever may have happened, because that's the route that I chose to take. Like, okay, how can I bring security to that? I guess like a therapeutic way to give you confidence, I guess, to come out, because I don't know what healing looked like. Well, I just know about like finding the source of the pain, and I know it's in me. But like I said, that's been the hardest portion of what I feel like my dark, deep past and the trauma that happened to me to pull it out. So now I'm like reading about it, searching about it, like how do you pull out pain, all of this stuff. So that's why, again, I'm asking the question, like, how do you, from being a doctor or clinical perspective, deep into that portion of you to pull that out?
Yeah. Well, I'll just give one perspective, because I think, again, what Sir Hale and Mr. Zen, sorry if I'm saying that incorrectly, what Zen talk about is that next level stuff. Because I also, I talk about getting to the root of the issue, because a lot of people don't know what the root, they don't know what the true problem is. They stay up here dealing with situations, not resolving problems. They just resolve these situations. So once you find out what the true problem is, here's what I suggest. If any of you heard of that, the body dysmorphia, so the easiest way to explain it is an overweight person could lose weight. If you watch those shows like a 600-pound wife or husband or whatever, and they could lose weight. At first they start could just barely get up on their elbows to eat, but then they lose a bunch of weight. But every time they look in the mirror, they swear to goodness they are still 600 pounds. They still believe they are flawed. So flawed now is what's at the front of their mind always. No matter how good they're doing, they always picture themselves flawed. So at some point, that level of awareness and doing some other type of work to get past that belief system and changing that narrative so flawed doesn't consume you or battle you or challenge you to the point where you feel like you have to stay in that performance of being a flawed person. So I'll let the others give perspective, but that's my idea, that first you have to find out that's at the root, and then figuring out how you perceive yourself, like what damage was done, what damage was done that you still carry with you. It carries with the image, carries with your behavior, and then engage into, boom, what these others on the panel, and I know Jasmine tapped into it too. I haven't heard all of what everyone's offered, but based on what they were saying, there are other ways to take it from there.
Yeah, you definitely have to investigate yourself.
Yeah, Daruso, let me empathize with you. I've been where you are. To be quite honest with you, there is a tendency to something makes me go back there for some reason. So when I was growing up, I was the literal. I was the ugly, black, pimple-faced kid that didn't go to school and that wet the bed. Right? That was like, those were the dominant things, and that made me an introvert. And I went through years, getting whooped a lot because, I went to bed back in the day. We thought you was being lazy. We didn't know it was a medical condition that you really can't control. So I got whipped a lot. And then, from where I come from, I was the nerd, the black, whatever you could think of, I was that for years. And what did this make me do? This made me become an introvert. And so I became quiet. I stuttered. People thought I had a problem. I didn't have a problem. I was afraid to talk because I was criticized for how I talked, criticized for how I looked, criticized for how I acted. I just criticized everywhere. And then you start learning to compensate by trying to make people laugh, trying to bring some light or show people you're talented. And for years, I felt disgusted with myself, because when you are judged and criticized frequently, you become a people pleaser. That's the quickest way to find some acceptance. And for years, I was this way, and I became this way, and I became a version of myself that I hated. What helped me to transform this, and this is going to sound crazy, but you're going to understand what I mean. At 35 years old now, I talked to my 5 and 6-year-old self. You know what I mean? I just thought about what I would say to me, and I said it out loud. And I let myself know that a lot of the pain that I felt was temporal. It wasn't an indictment of who I was. Like, people's opinions were just that. What I did, because I didn't have any frame of reference and I didn't have strength to be able to like let it roll off your shoulders, I internalized it because those words came from people I trusted. And so I took on their opinions, the worst of it, and I embraced it, I absorbed it, and I became it. And I had to talk to myself like I talked to my son, who's 11, 12, right? I talked to myself like I would talk to my son. And that freed me, man, like being able to talk to me. Because I'm still me. I'm just the 35-year-old version of the 6-year-old me. I'm still me. So I had to talk to myself and give myself permission to come up from those opinions and the things that made me feel, unvalued. Here's the big thing that killed me. I felt unseen. That's a deep one. Like you be going through hurt, going through stuff, like that's one thing. But when you feel invisible to people, that's a different level of hurt. So I went back and I talked to me on that level, and I gave myself that freedom. And I stopped looking for people who hurt me to fix me. That's on me, right? And once I did that, that changed everything. A lot of us, it's funny, we will encourage other people's kids, and we want to encourage the kid in ourselves. So sometimes you got to go back and speak to your own self and give yourself that freedom to embrace what happened to you, and then to be grateful that it's made you what you are today. So again, sit in it, talk to yourself, and be grateful that you survived it and that you didn't allow what breaks people to break you. Like that to me has helped me. And of course, you throw my faith on top of that. All those things make a difference.
Yeah, honestly, that's the point that I've found myself all three of the times that I've had the vision, just asking myself honestly, like, Sean, what happened? Like, Sean, are you okay? Like, you okay, Sean? And what happened? And like literally, that's what it's been, and like I said, I feel like that's the last portion, honestly, before I can honestly genuinely feel like I'm whole. You know what I mean? Yeah, man. So that's why, again, I'm just like, I'm trying to figure that out, man.
So I'm sorry for what happened to you.
I like to add something to that.
For being in that dark place. I'm sorry it happened to you, but I'm glad you survived, brother. I'm just saying that as another brother to another brother. I'm glad you made it, bro, and I'm glad that you're here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful. Yes. Thank you, brother. I love it. I love to see the growth from a black man that's from the hood. I love that hood nigga in me. And so to see the evolution and have it comes out, it's beautiful to see it in other brothers. So I'm proud of you, brother. And I also would like to add, we're every age that we ever were. So we're still 2, we're still 3. Those ages don't die. It's just wisdom that's supposed to increase with each age. So nurture that, like Sir Hale said, nurture that young boy. Tell him like it's okay. We all, oftentimes when we're experiencing trauma, hurt, we single ourselves out from the trillions of humans on the planet, and we make it seem as if it's only me that's going through this. Whatever the hurt, whatever it is that makes you feel that way, we only have a few emotions. We all respond the same way as humans, no matter what it is, how big it is, how small it is. The response is always the same in this human body, and we forget that. So like my trauma is so extreme, it's making me do this. Certain traumas make people hurt people. Some traumas make people actually kill people, curse people out. It's different degree. It's frequency, right? When you view people as frequency, you have grace. You understand that it's really not them. Whoever made me feel that way, it wasn't them. It was a frequency that they were simply on, and that whatever that frequency was caused them to hurt someone. You raise the frequency. We teach people how to raise their frequency to hurt lessons. The more beautiful this world feels, the joy that increases in your life, your perspective opens. But you have to keep your heart open in order for that to happen.
So I know I had a series I had a period in my life where I was seeking like the professional therapist. That didn't go as well. So once I started trying to tap into myself spiritually, that's when I started seeing Zen Buddhists Zen, I said Zen Buddha, Zen Frankie, and I started doing the chakra work so that I'm able to raise my frequency. And I know a lot of times when we go through things in life, like everybody said, we think that we're the only person that's going through it. Like I'm thinking I was the only person that was on the panel that experienced what I experienced. And then last week on Beautifully Animated opening up, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not the only person that experienced that. I know for me, Sarhel said something about giving people grace. A lot of times we just keep going in life, and we don't even take the time to sit in what it is that we were sitting in. Like I said earlier, once you start putting that work in for yourself, because I do feel like in the beginning, like I know Sarhel was saying, like, okay, well, if something happened, right, you want to, before you send that email, you want to kind of like sit on it. But sometimes when you have people, especially in the beginning of their recovery stage of healing, they can't really process, let me sit in this, let me take this moment and let me try to reflect on what it is that I'm trying to express. I could have had a situation where I'm talking to my cousin hypothetically, and her feelings could have been hurt if I didn't show up. But instead of her expressing that I hurt her feelings, she may express anger instead of the hurt that I hurt her feelings that I couldn't show up. I know a lot of times it's hard for us to really show people grace. You have to be vibrating off a different frequency once you become fully aware of who you are in order for you to show other people grace. Once I start, I guess, increasing my vibration, what it did is in turn, it allowed me to learn to forgive, because for so long I couldn't forgive anybody. I was just angry and hurt. And I wanted to hurt somebody, but I didn't want to go to jail. So I did not want to go to jail. So I did not hurt anybody. But needless to say, I do feel like it's truly, like it's important for us to learn and give people grace. Me being able to give myself grace, what it did is it allowed me to give my mom grace, my father grace, all the people that hurt me grace, and start looking at them like it's not me, it was them, that they did whatever they did. They made the decisions. I know a lot of times we be upset at our parents because we want our moms and dads to be this perfect image of whatever that is. And we don't know what they experienced in life. So I know I had a talk with my mom, and things used to get like real disrespectful, not on my end. And I never understood, like, if this woman claimed that she loved me so much, why would she disrespect me? But it wasn't until recently when we sat down and had that conversation, because now she's on her healing journey and trying to become a better person, which I do applaud her for that, that she expressed that, well, I disrespected you because that's what I was taught. That's what I was taught. My mom disrespected me. So I thought it was okay for me to disrespect my child. I knew as a kid that I didn't like to be disrespected. Like we got this thing right now with women, when we talk to each other, we use that B word, heavenly. So for the people that truly know me, knows that I don't play the B word. And the reason why I don't engage in using that words with my friends, and I have more than one reason. One reason is because I was always called that growing up, and I didn't like how that made me feel. The second reason is I feel like if, of course, staying in the city, you hanging out, you young, you at places that you're not supposed to be. And these young men can be very disrespectful sometimes. So if I'm congregating with a group of my lady friends and there's some gentlemen around us, and he see me calling you out your name, being disrespectful, I don't want this man to feel comfortable with disrespecting my friend. So those are the reasons why I couldn't really get down with the B word. And then it's like, now I'm a mother and I'm looking at my daughter like, she is not a B word. She is the most beautiful, chocolatest thing that I've ever seen. I would never want to degrade her, because a lot of times that's what we do. We go through things as parents, and we know that thing didn't make us feel good. So if you didn't like how it made you feel as a parent, why would you pass down that trauma? You get what I'm saying?
I mean, you have to break the chain. You know what I'm saying? Your parents failed at breaking the chain, so it's on you to break the chain, not keep it going. I'm the same way. There's things that I didn't like about my childhood that I protected my child from. And I told my parents, you're not gonna disrespect my child. You know what I'm saying? Try me if you want to. Ain't nobody disrespecting my child.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I was
Hey,
saying
that was
all that.
no. Go
I
ahead,
guess
Jazz.
I guess I was saying all that to say, because I know last week when we was talking about this generation, like our group right now, like we're really out here trying to break that psychological that chain. I know people always talk about breaking poverty chain, but we have to break that poverty mindset too if we want our
Yes.
children to come up to be like our children are our future. So if we want them to come up, and then we want them to be able to pass something down to our grandchildren and then to their children, we got to really work on the way that we think and we process things. During my healing process, my biggest thing was changing the way I was thinking, because I was internalizing things. I was taking everything personal. And a lot of times we have to realize, like, yeah, it hurt our feelings, but we shouldn't be taking everything personal. Even like being a victim, like I had to pride myself on being a victor and not a victim. And I know sometimes what they do is it causes us to, when you have somebody that's mentally strong, sometimes it's hard for you to show empathy or sympathy for other people, because you're looking at yourself like, if I can do it, they can do it too. And I know sometimes I feel like I be hard on women, because most women do so much egregious things just to get attention. Because like I said earlier, attention is currency. But I do feel like you need to put in that work. You need to put in that work. We all need to put in that work. We all need to put in that work.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I think what you said is real powerful. You know, how we all out here doing it. And I'm gonna take it back. I think it was you, Sir Hale, you know, who he was like talk to that, you know, that young me. I must say, like, I do it vicariously. Like, I live a portion of myself, I feel like, vicariously through my son. And I say that because, like, I talk to him the way that I would have want to be talked to as a young man. You know what I mean? Like, rarely is he called Daru. You know what I mean? It's always King, King, King. You know what I mean? To be honest, I think maybe like one of his first set of words was "good job." You know what I mean? Like, real talk. From honestly, man, because it was like I knew what I wanted out of life, and then, you know, I read a lot, so I wanted to see, like, was the experiments real? You know, like talking to his mama's stomach, the flashlight. You know what I mean? Like, when I say I did all of that, I did it. And it's like, again, man, I just try to pour so much of that, you know, into him. And one of the big things I'm gonna touch on what you said, Jasmine, like breaking that mindset. You know, I do my best to install accountability in him. Like this morning's conversation was this: he got put on lunchroom detention because he kicked the door stopper, and he like, well, everybody else was kicking it, and then they kicked it in front of me, and I accidentally kicked it. No. We don't make no accidents like that. You know what I mean? And I had to tell him, you know, you may get in trouble, but for telling the truth. But telling the truth gets you much further in life, like being authentic and being genuine. You know what I mean? And not hiding behind a cloth of shenanigans. It gets you much further than that. And it's like, I'm glad that I went through the stuff that I went through to be able to teach him how to overcome the stuff that may come his way. You know what I mean? I feel like my boy gonna avoid a lot of stuff based off the trauma and the things that I didn't heal through, and the things that I didn't been through. Like, when I say, man, I'm gonna lay down and he gonna step on my back just for him to get up there, like, that's what it's gonna be. For real.
Wait, what's the flashlight thing?
It's a flashlight?
No, you said you use a flashlight when his mom was pregnant.
Oh, yeah. So what they were saying was, like, children in the womb are aware, right? So they were saying, like, if you flash a light, you know, on their stomach, they'll come to the light because they could see the light or whatever. So honestly, I tried it, and like, he would gravitate to that side. Like, he would literally come over there to where the light was at. And another thing I realized was that he realized my voice in the womb. You know what I mean? Whenever I would come around or whatever, I always greeted her stomach like he was real alive. Like, yo, what's up, my dude? What's up, my boy? And I don't know if it be fist, elbow, knee, or whatever, but you see that stomach just bulging. Honestly, y'all, even to the point. Yeah, man, look, even to the point, like I was there when he was born, man. It's a crazy sight, dude. Like, make you dim away from sex for a minute, like, yo, like, but I cut the umbilical cord. Yeah, seriously, man, I cut the umbilical cord. And it was like, I never thought I would be in a place I was at, like, damn, like shedding tears or whatever. And I remember they was patting him on his butt and he wouldn't cry. And I was like, hey, and his eyes got big and he just started cheesing. They was like, well, we know he is aware. He know Dad's voice. And the only thing I was thinking in my head, like, not to sound crazy, but like, I can't wait to do all the experiments on this kid. Like, because all the stuff that I read to make them like geniuses and aware and stuff like that. And I think like, now from the conversations I had with him sitting in a car seat and I've got the bottle tipped up and I'm telling him all the hood stories. I'm like, that's why he be talking the way he talk now. Like his vocabulary is really big. And honestly, like I said, I think his vocabulary really big. And I'm gonna say one more thing, then I'm gonna let off. Like this king thing used to always be in me, and I always felt like it was cliche. And like my sister got this vivid memory. We really got this big bond. So whenever I have like visions and stuff, like the last time I had the vision of myself being a child, you know, in a corner crying, I seen I had on like a yellow t-shirt or something. So I called my sister. I said, yo, you remember anything about me having a, you know, yellow t-shirt on? And like she like went into, you know what I mean, like everything about it or whatever. And honestly, I'm gonna let go because I just completely lost my train of thought. I just lost my whole train of thought.
I think I'm rubbing off on you, Daru. Because you know, I know earlier you had said something about like trauma being stored in the body, right? And that brought me back to a place where I was thinking when I did my no meat diet. The first time I did the no meat diet, I did it 58 days, no meat, just all fruits and vegetables. And then I felt so good and so energetic. I started back eating meat. When I started back eating meat, I started having less energy, more depressed. Just recently, I did 14 days, no meat. All good, feeling super energetic. And I didn't really understand that even it's trauma in the things that we eat too, and how traumatizing they can be towards our body. Frankie had to educate me on that because he's keep on telling me you need to stop eating that meat. But I don't know why I can't stop eating it because it tastes so good when I season it so well. So it tastes so good. But
if that's the case, my trauma get processed every time I eat some chicken wings.
That's what I'm always. Every time I do the no meat and I'm going strong, the first thing I need is some wings with some mayo sauce on it. I'm not even gonna lie. It's the mayo sauce. That's what it is.
I can't let the chicken suffer like that and not make it mean something. So I'm doing good work there.
Right? You can't let the chicken suffer in vain.
It can't be in vain.
Frankie, you hit on that with what you had healed yourself from with how that was traumatic to you and the traumatic life experience you had with the diet?
The trauma that I experienced, I would say, was from Crohn's. My Crohn's disease, I got diagnosed in 2001 when I was in 8th grade. And, you know, you don't realize what true pain is until it's actually physical and it's continuum in your body. And you don't know what to do. They don't know what to do, but you're still hurting, and the hurt is increasing every single day. And so I had surgery, and then I went to the doctor, and they started having me on meds after the surgery. I didn't take the medicine, and years later, I stopped eating beef, and then I ate some beef. And it irritated my stomach. I just felt it. And I knew what it was because I didn't have that sensation prior. So I went, had a colonoscopy, and they saw like 2 to 3 ulcers. And this doctor, who I now know just has a really negative, bad reputation on how to care for people, how to speak to people. And He was like, your Crohn's is back and it's angry. And if you don't have surgery, if you don't get on medicine, you're going to end up having to get another surgery. And I rebuked the hell out of that because, I'm like, hey, I felt anger from this Crohn's. If we're gonna grade it as such, and this is mild, I can handle this. I can get rid of this on my own. So it was a clear voice in my head. I knew it wasn't mine because I knew nothing about veganism. I knew nothing about meditation. I wasn't who I am in this present moment. And God, spirit, whatever, the universe, whatever you want to call it, was like, in order for you to heal yourself, you got to become vegan. And then you have to meditate, and I asked the doctors, is it true that 60 to 70% of healing is in your mind? And they told me yes. And so I started to read articles, and then I became Zen Buddhist, just to really study and dive into meditation to get my brain as strong as possible to really overcome this sickness and heal myself. And so these affirmations work like we speak to ourselves. You have to speak to yourself, speak to your cells that respond to us. And so consistently say to myself, I am healed. I can heal myself. I am overcoming this. And also applying methods to support that. So changing how I ate, changing how I think, being consistent in my meditation practice. Then I started doing Kamadic yoga and then Reiki, and here we are now. I help others heal themselves from whatever it may be. The power is in the belief. Like, that's what faith is, because what you know. You don't need faith for what you know. But the mystery of God is we don't know. In quantum physics, we can keep pulling the veil back, and when they realize that they don't know anything, and that's the mystery. That's one of the most beautiful things of existing in this human form, is to not know but still trust the process.
Mm-hmm.
But
You muted.
yeah, we can't hear you.
All right, I don't want to take up everybody's evening. I'm gonna ask everybody one question, and everybody can kind of like go around, so we can kind of wrap this show up. And it'll be the same question that I asked last week. With your experience from trauma and being in the healing phase, what are some techniques or coping mechanism that you can kind of offer somebody else that's trying to repair their lives and trying to work through any form of trauma that they may have? We can start with Beautifully Animated.
As far as the releases, listen to music, do what you like to do, write poetry, draw, sketch, whatever. You can also keep a journal for writing down these issues that you have, so you don't feel the need to hold them in you, because writing them down on paper helps you release also. And just having someone to talk to, whether it's a friend or a family member or a therapist. It's good to talk it out, because people can help you sort through your emotions and things and guide you as far as how to handle them. That's it for me.
So are we just jumping in there?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Daru, go ahead, Daru.
What was the question again?
The question was, what do you use as a coping? If someone needed some advice, what type of coping mechanisms you can give them throughout the healing process?
To be honest, I didn't really use a coping mechanism, and I heard Beautifully Animated say something about releasing. When I came to the conclusion that I was actually holding that stuff in, I'm like, oh, I got to get it out, So I don't know, like I more so took the approach of just wanting to face it head on. To be honest, like just wanting to face it head on. And then I think the most that I did, like I vibe out to music, like beautifully animated said. That'd be
I love my rock music.
I dig out to some Yo Gotti. You know what I mean?
All right, Frankie, take it away. Same question.
Things that I use, to breathing, being mindful of my breath, and in praying. Like I pray to my higher self every single morning. In Europe, we call that our Ori, and the chakra system is the crown chakra. But praying to my higher self, speaking those blessings, speaking that light, affirming myself, and helping others. You know, oftentimes, once you dive into the suffering of another human, you realize how little your shit is. And I think we all should be doing is helping someone along this path. Because, this human experience is challenging. So helping someone helps you get out of your own head, which is then is a form of release.
Sahil?
First of all, Jasmine, this is a beautiful conversation. So thanks for inviting me to this. This is awesome. A couple of things. I'm a man of faith, so I pray, and I'm thankful. Like that's before I even do anything. I learn to start from a place of gratitude, a place of thankfulness. It gives me perspectives. It gives me calm. It gives me context. So I do that first. And then I pause and I'm still. Zen, you said what I was going to say, man. You said what I was going to say about the breathing part. I don't think people. I think people underestimate the power of breathing and how that centers you in focus. I'm not sure if any of you have done this, but I have literally taken 10 minutes of just breathing and concentrating. Your mind slips away, bring it back, recenter, and keep on breathing. And 10 minutes of focus will feel like a 30-minute nap. Got the same results because of that focus. So, you pray, you be thankful, you pause for a second, and then you have people you can talk to. Like as much as we can internalize and think for ourselves and try to heal ourselves, you need people. You need people who care about you. They don't have to be the smartest, they don't have to be the deepest, but they have to be caring of you. Because when you can pour out sometimes in talking, you answer your own questions. So you have to be around people who care about you, because that's part of that support system you need going through your healing journey. Nobody heals by themselves. Nobody does. And so you need people for that. So those would be the things that I say. Thankfulness, prayer, thankfulness, sit still, and then you need people that can get you and assist you as you heal.
Doc?
I would agree. Some people think maybe just have lots of extra sex and a big bag of gummies, but that's not.
That don't sound bad.
That's not what I would suggest. But some people, because what does that bring? Connection, touch, feel good, stimulation, and the gummies or the alcohol that might, help you disconnect. But I would say some healthier or some different alternatives would be knowing that this may be larger than you. If you start looking at those patterns, like, man, I'm in the pattern, it must be larger than me. So is there connection with the higher power? And so does that, whatever that higher power is to you, but something beyond what you're doing, because your single system might not be working. Exercise, movement, breaking up some of those narratives or physical narratives by, either become lazy, sleepy, depressed, or symptoms of depression. So a lot of movement, breathing, and asking for help. As I was saying earlier, and Jasmine, you mentioned in the chat, no one way works for everyone. You have to discover. So be open to hearing what some of those behaviors are. Seek support. Try different ways. See what hits. See what really hits and feels good to you, and maybe even double down. And last, I would say, please be careful that you don't swing from one side and overdo it by going extremely to the other side, overcompensating, overextending, because then you can get in this rut and be called, what at least what I, even for myself, have to be careful, because sometimes I say, man, I think I'm blessed and I'm cursed. Like, there's a point where you have to be careful that you don't go too far. Lastly, give back. Once you realize what's worked for you, or you've been doing the work, give back. That feels so good when you have that level of gratitude, appreciation, and give back.
Okay, so I guess it's my turn. For me, I typically start my day off with an attitude of gratitude. That's me getting up, opening up my eyes, thanking a higher being for another day, checking on my baby, making sure she have breath, showing gratitude that she's alive, being grateful that I have hot water, because there's some people that can't pay their water bill, being grateful that I have heat, I have shelter, and that I have all my basic necessities. A lot of times when I'm going through things, sometimes we do need to be by ourselves. So what I tend to do is I do a lot of reading. I do a lot of writing. And I had gotten the habit of recording myself, not like video recording, but listening to myself audio. And then later on down the line, I'll go back and listen to an audio just so I can understand myself, because it's hard for me to understand other people if I don't understand who I am as an individual. It'll be hard for me to have that empathy. A lot of things that I do, I think I said it on the last show, I have bucket lists. Each bucket list is compiled of different things. I have a bucket list full of books that I want to read, a bucket list of places I want to travel, activities I want to do. I have a bucket list, a fear bucket list, because I had a fear with water and I had a fear with heights because of some things that happened to me. So me overcoming those things and doing the things that I want to do because it's what I want to do. It's not that I'm forcing myself or I'm overextending myself. And then I also have to realize, like, even this life that we're living, we're here only for a short period of time, and it's not always about me. So me learning to give back and serve in more ways than not, that does not take away from who I am as an individual. So those are some of the things I kind of do to heal through my process. Also tapping into that little girl, that little Jasmine, when I first felt like I was first traumatized. Me tapping into that person and like filling in that hole, because that's typically what happens to us. When something happens to us, we have this hole. We feel like this what we damaged in this hole, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper if we don't work on it. So me like slowly repairing that hole so that it's easy for me to give love freely. I know for a long time, I've always used to beg God for patience and strength. And once I feel like I mastered patience and strength, I got to a point where I started asking to operate out of peace and love. When I tell y'all, I'm at so much peace, and ain't nothing nobody can say or do to make me feel unpeaceful. So me being able to operate out of peace and love, and when I'm showing love, I'm giving love freely without really having expectations. The only thing that I may expect is the acknowledgement of the receipt. And that lets me know that, okay, well, I'm on the right path to, like, it makes me feel proud of that I'm making a progress, because a lot of times people won't make that progress. What they do is, like I said, they pride themselves on being a victim, because you get more attention with being a victim than actually putting in that work. Because then now when you put in that work, people look at you as displaying some form of strength. So I want to thank all of you guys for coming on the show tonight. If y'all watching this live, make sure y'all follow all the people that's on the panel. We will see you guys next Wednesday. And look, thanks again for tuning in another episode of Jasmine Says It All.
Bye.
Peace.